Dude, first off, thank you so much for being here.
You're so famous, dude. You have your own podcast, and you're so
This
famous.
is literally my first podcast I've ever done.
I don't believe it.
I promise you.
You're
This
so
is this.
famous.
You're the first person.
You're famous on TikTok. Like, it's crazy. You're living every artist's dream in Nashville right now.
Which is just unreal. How did I know that this is the way Jackie Lee was going to start this? I seriously, dude, I'm so pumped that you're here. I am not famous. I've got one TikTok that went crazy that let's talk about it. You want to talk about it? I did. Okay.
Listen to you.
I went to a Sherwin-Williams.
You sound disgusting.
This is exactly what happened. I'm going to let the people know. I went to Sherwin-Williams. I was ticked off. My wife told me to go to Sherwin-Williams to pick up paint. I was in a rush. There was something going on with the restaurants. I needed to be at the restaurants. And
then you did a dance to a Jelly Roll song, and the rest is history.
No, I didn't do that. I went to Sherwin-Williams, and basically how I cope with being frustrated is that I just try to do something. I try to make myself laugh, okay? So I walk into Sherwin-Williams. I don't know if you've ever been to a Sherwin-Williams, but, dude, their barista, it's not a barista, but their bar with coffee.
What kind of Sherwin-Williams are you
Dude, the most bougiest coffee setup I've ever been around. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm going, this is the craziest thing in the world. So basically, I posted this TikTok, and I just said, Starbucks charged me $6 for my black cup of coffee, so I've been perusing my local Sherwin-Williams to get free coffee every morning. Right?
You're such a
that's kind of like
you're such a fame whore, bro.
Well, no,
you
dude,
that was gonna go viral.
That's kind of how I felt too. I was like, that's kind of funny, but not really. Like, I didn't come out of my shoes, dude. 1.1 million people. I had Starbucks haters telling me how much.
I mean, I could sign a record deal if I had
not...
1.1 million views on TikTok, dude.
No, that's just not the whatever, dude. All right, let's get to whatever. That's what happened, and it was just.
I'm proud of you, dude. You gotta show me how to do that.
I'm kind of leaning into it. I'm leaning into it. I'm trying to make some money, dude. So. Jackie Lee was born in Maryville, Tennessee.
Merville. It's Maryville, but you gotta say Merville.
What was life like for you growing up?
Really great, man. I had a wonderful mother and father. For me to be sarcastic and a butthole as much as I am a lot of the time, I really did have a wonderful mother and father. Maryville's such a unique place. Because, it's a true southern town, but we're from Appalachia. So, man, Appalachia is kind of like to me, it's like the Bermuda Triangle of the South, in a way that you get in there and you get turned around and nothing is ever as it seems. The people, the culture, the way of life. I think we get a pretty heavy stigma for the way that, we talk and the way we approach life, but it's an honest way to approach life.
Give me an example. Like, what do you mean? How do you
yeah, I mean, even down to, I think Theo Vaughn has a joke about, like, growing up poor in the area he did. It's like, we couldn't afford racism. You know what I mean? It's like, we're going to share this plum or what, man?
Right.
It's like, it is that mentality of just like, I don't know. Like, I went to there's as many black kids in my school as there was white kids. I say this often that, like, growing up, the king and queen of our region was Dolly Parton and Pat Summitt. So, like, I guess what I mean is that people have a stigma of people from the South. And I just feel like my upbringing was nothing like that. Like I said, two women were the heroes of, like, a generation of people growing up in East Tennessee. And to this day, Dolly Parton is, like, not only as an artist, but as a business person, someone that I admire so much. I'm literally so proud to be from the same place she is, right? So it's different. Appalachia's different. It's not, it's not just what people, like I said, people think. So, yeah, growing up and also Maryville, like, it's a bit posh now. Like, dude, even driving through downtown Bowling Green, it's like, it's a nice little square. It's a little posh little area.
Right.
And it wasn't exactly like that growing up, but it just was a great place to be from, man. Like, I love all my family still live there. I love going back. I love the mountains. Yeah, man. It's a good
So
place.
like siblings, and then you're a pastor's kid, right?
I'm PK,
PK
baby.
baby. So what was it like growing up as a pastor's kid, and kind of the stigma behind that?
My dad didn't become a pastor until I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I do have a younger brother and a younger sister, and my sister's 11 years younger. My brother's 5, so there's like good space, in between all of us. But we're all very, very close, and I love them so much. But yeah, growing up as a PK was, man, it was so great in so many ways. Great for the experience of, quite frankly, perfect for the entertainment business because you're talking to a different type of human every single Sunday. It feels like, like churches where the people, hurting people go, and you see a lot of it. You see just firsthand adult conversations and adult things, and so I think in a lot of ways it prepared me. But yeah, it also sucks sometimes, sucks a lot of the times, and the thing I think that made it suck less was my parents. Like I feel like their approach to their faith was, you know, if this is real, we're not going to play a game.
Yeah.
And we live in a hurting world. And my mother and father, you know, had such an unbelievable heart to just help the needy. And so, like, from the time that I was, this before he even started the church, but I can remember from the time I was, my first singing engagement ever, I sang Amazing Grace at 3 year old at my aunt's wedding. But
You were 3?
I still have a picture. I'm in a white tuxedo, mullet, looks awesome.
Holy smokes.
And but by the time I was 5, we were traveling. There's another. My dad was playing keyboard and keyboard bass, and this woman named Crystal Green, who, dude, is one of the best singers to this day that I've heard. And she was like 11, and I played the drums. I wanted to be Phil Collins so bad. And so my mother actually played the drums for like the first year, but then I got old enough and I played the drums and I sang lead. And my dad played keyboard bass with one hand and the keyboard with the other hand. And we had a little band and we traveled all over the Southeast singing churches and stuff.
I
And
had no idea.
so we, my dad's name is also Jackie Lee. And so the name of the band was Jackie Lee and Pure Heart. And we even had Letterman jackets made and the whole nine. We still have those. But man, it was just, my dad is such a advantageous, musician, and is such a great singer. Like, truthfully, like, such a great singer and can play any instrument and is just the most diehard country music fan. Like, I make fun of him all the time because he's essentially like a walking encyclopedia for country music.
Really?
And he's such a nerd when it comes to country music.
Yeah.
And he's going to watch this. And he has nothing but country music tattoo arm sleeve. Like, such a nerd when it comes to country music. And I love it. It made, like, it's, a lot of guys have a sports team with their dad.
Yeah.
And my sports team was the Grand Ole Opry.
That's crazy. So for me, growing up, I remember vividly going to school in my dad's Dodge Ram truck, and we called it the Texas Walker Ranger truck because that's what Texas Walker Ranger
Absolutely.
drove.
Yep.
And we couldn't wait to be in that truck. And then, like, an album to me that I felt like me and my dad, because, like, I have an unbelievable dad, but I feel like it was really hard because my dad's dad died when he was like 17 in the military.
So did my dad.
And we talked about this a little bit, but like, my dad and I have a great relationship, but affection, I think, was there at times, but like, we really didn't connect on much. But we did country music, and I remember Toby Keith's album, whiskey for my man, beer for my. So this whole album, like, just shaped. I just remember being in my dad's front seat and him putting my car seat in the front seat. I thought that was the coolest thing because you weren't supposed to do that. And us blaring Toby Keith on the way to things. Is there like an album, or is there like an artist in particular that, like, you and your dad share, or do you have those moments? I mean, he's an avid country, so you heard a lot, right? Joe Diffie was big in our home. Toby Keith, all the old Tim McGraw and Kenny stuff, like, that was just.
What I remember
Flats was
more
massive.
so than
Yeah.
there being like a specific album, my dad is a huge Ernest Tubb fan, and so, like, I feel like that's a pretty obscure artist as, our generation to,
Right.
because that was even kind of pre his generation.
Right.
But more so than even that, what I remember is my dad constantly trying to, because we lived close enough to Nashville to be able to pick up WSM.
Mm.
And, this is before technology. Like nowadays, you can be anywhere in the world on your phone and listen to it, but you had to get the actual radio frequency. And I have many often memories on a Saturday night. My dad and I would go sit in the car in the driveway,
Yeah.
and or oftentimes he'd be sitting in the car because I thought it was boring a lot of times. But obviously looking back on those times, it's just like that was it.
Yeah.
That was the bonding. It was like, yeah, music was the thing, but like, and then fast forward to then 2014, I got to make my Opry debut, and he got to play with me. And so anyway, it just yeah, of course songs, but more so than songs, it was my favorite. My mom loved country music, and she was the reason we listened. She's from East Tennessee. She's the reason we listened to '90s country because it was just on the radio. It's our way of life. But she was definitely like Prince and Huey Lewis and the News and Bob Seger. Like, that was her taste in music.
Mm.
And so Bob Seger, hands down is like, Merle Haggard's probably like my favorite artist of all time. I think it's best for a country artist to say a country artist is his favorite artist, but truthfully, Bob Seger is like my favorite artist of all time. And what Bob Seger did back then is just country music today. It's just telling a story through some cool music, but some rockier music. But yeah, my favorite thing was them bickering on like my dad like trying his best to win her over with like just 80s and 70s country music, and her just rolling her eyes being like, put Prince on, like what are we listening to?
Yeah, I for the most part my parents agreed. I think my mom was such a saint. It was like, Lord, I lift your name on high, and then my dad doing like whiskey for her. So it's like that was like the dynamic in our home. It was like my mom would be rolling her eyes but singing along.
Yeah, of course,
And
of course,
that would just be kind of
that's what
like,
moms are supposed to do, man.
yeah, that was our dynamic. What about a concert? I mean, is there a concert that sticks out? You went with your parents or?
One of the first one that I do remember, because I was really young, and I think it was at Thompson Bowling Arena in Knoxville. We went to go see Reba McEntire. And probably people know which era it was. I mean, definitely was the 90s, but it was it was like the first concert she had when she took the lift like over the audience. Because like one of the only memories of that, and I remember like mom and like us, kind of scuffling to our seats. I do vaguely, but then the thing I remember is looking up and Reba just being over top of us. That's really like one of the first concerts I remember. But then like I started going to concerts when I like moved to Nashville. Like,
So was there like a moment where you were like, this is what I want to do?
I wanted to play football.
Yeah.
I
was gonna ask.
I was
that.
like,
I know you're an athlete.
Well, depends on who you ask. I went to high school with Randall Cobb, and even one of my best friends, Tyler Robinson. He was bigger than me and faster than me and stronger than me, and so it's like, there was no shot I was ever gonna go play college football, especially with Randall Cobb on your team. And dude, Randall was like the fourth best player on our team. Like we had kids that were getting full rides to, Florida and Florida State and, all these other colleges. And so it was very evident. Music was just something I did, man. Like I didn't know, like, when you just do stuff, I almost like weirdly didn't want to be identified with that because it maybe wasn't cool to me, or like my dad made me do it my whole life. And, but then around my summer of my junior year, when you're 16, 17 and you're starting to think like, shit, like I'm about to be an adult. Like what I want to do, what am I good at? Sing. I sang every single week, multiple times a week for church, and for like, I was always singing. Like I never even thought about like I could turn that into a profession. And my mother, my dad always wanted me to sing country music. Like that
Right.
Literally zero hidden agenda with that. Like that's what he wanted me to do. And my mom, they were married. They got married not because they were pregnant with me, for the record, but they got married at like 20 years old,
Yeah.
you know, and they ended up having like they moved to Nashville, and he tried to make it, and it didn't work out for him in that arena. He still like has nothing but potential ahead of him, but I think that my mother just saw how hurtful all of that was,
Right.
and she didn't want that for me. And 15 years into the game, like after the struggles I've had, I understand.
Right.
I definitely can tell you I don't want my kid going into this business.
Right.
I'll support them whatever they do, but my dad gave me the best advice that I think about every single week of my life. Of He was like, if you're doing this for any other reason than besides you love it, then you are going to be nothing but upset, and it's never going to work.
Right.
Because there will be a million things that tell you that you shouldn't or can't do this.
Yeah, so let's get into some of that. But it kind of, let's backtrack a little bit. It also helped. I don't know if any of you have ever seen Jackie Lee, but Jackie Lee is 6'4".
Who are you talking to, bro? You have an audience? Like, you have millions of subscribers?
He looks like GQ. And I think when he was like 16, 17, first moved to town, I think you were like the most eligible bachelor or something. Wasn't that a thing? Yeah, okay. So he can sit here and talk to me about TikTok.
You know why? No, you know why I got that, right?
He looked good. No, I don't know why.
Okay, so this is like, I think I'm like, I don't know, 21 or 22. And I get my manager at the time, was my first manager, and he says, hey, I got a call today. Someone, we don't know who, nominated you. Nashville Lifestyles magazine was doing a thing in February for the 17 most eligible bachelorettes in the city. And like, dude, that could not be any more against like what I believe in / want to be a part of. And so,
but you took the cover.
Well, this is how. I told my manager, was like,
it looked like you wanted to be there.
I was like, I don't want to do it. And he was like, I think you should do it. And I was like, okay, what do I have to do? And they sent over this thing that I had to fill out this questionnaire.
Yeah.
And there was like softball questions like, what's a pet peeve in a partner? And I said, women that leave the toilet seat down. And then they said, like, describe, like what's the thing that I think, this is what got me the cover. They said, describe your perfect date. And I said, that's a tough one. I think I'll have to say April 25th because it's not too hot, not too cold. All you need is a light jacket. That was my legit answer from Miss Congeniality.
It's so good, though. It's so good.
And I made a joke of every question that they asked was like,
yeah, they ate it up.
Everyone's giving all these like heartfelt things. And I'm just like, man, that dude. Like,
yeah, that's entertaining. That's gonna get you the
and
cover.
so we get a call, and they're like, because we all had to go do a photo shoot, like, and they, there's like some headshots. They snap a few like lifestyle photos. And then I forgot about it. And like a month later, we get an email, like, we get a letter, and it's like a formal invitation. And we get to the party. This is how I found out. We get to the party, and it was like, where like San Anejo area was. Yeah. There's like some building, because I don't even know if that was there yet. It was just like an empty building, and my face is printed roughly 275 times all over this building. There's like 400 people at this party. Like,
did you bring a date?
10 foot. My manager.
I'm just kidding.
And I walk in. I'm like, nope. He's like, no, come on. I'm like, nope. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Because like, trust me, I hate myself more than anybody hates me. And walking in there and seeing my mug all over the place, I was like, no. I hate this.
You're a good-looking guy, dude.
But
all right, fast forward. You moved to Nashville.
I wish it helped. I wish it would have done something to help.
Well, dude, you were talking about like. Well, I'll go back to that too because my story is very similar in that people are always asking me. It's like, man, why did you choose restaurants or why did you choose to go into business? And I was like, listen, both of my parents worked for themselves. They were it was just negligence. Like I didn't know that there was another thing to do. Truthfully, like you grew up in music, and so music was pretty organic transition, and people were like, man, how'd you choose? For me, people would be like, man, how did you choose to go into business for yourself or whatever? I was like, y'all, I was just dumb enough to think that was the only thing I could do. truthfully.
Well, it definitely was
Like
the only
that's
thing
the
I felt like
just
I was
felt
good
like,
at.
yeah, I mean, I was just like that's how I was raised. I was just raised around a bunch of entrepreneurs. There wasn't right, wrong, or indifferent. Doesn't make anyone less than because they choose to work a 9 to 5. That's not the point. The point is like I grew up in a world where dad was always on. Like he had to leave, he had to come, he had to go. Saturdays and Sundays were no different than Monday and Tuesday. Like it was
Correct.
just
Yeah.
part of my life, and I didn't. The contrary didn't make sense to me. So that's just organically the. I wish there was this pivotal moment, like yeah, I'm just going to be this bazillionaire entrepreneur, and that's not the case. Obviously, I'm just saying like that just wasn't a thing for me. But I just grew up in a home of entrepreneurs to where it was just what I thought I had. I got to pick out my thing and I had to go work hard.
Well,
And it
even
sounds
you
like with music,
using the
it's very
example of
similar.
like Saturday and Sunday, those are
Well, yeah, that's when you guys are working.
that's when
Yeah,
I'm working,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then even down to okay, producer Will and I were talking about this on the drive up here. It is like being an entrepreneur because I don't see myself as an entrepreneur. I am
Yeah,
as a
you
musician,
as an entity. Yeah,
but I don't see it as that. And quite frankly, how I get paid is just who I feel like I am. So it doesn't feel like I'm doing a job a lot of the times. It feels like I'm being myself.
Mm.
And so therefore it's hard to bring validity to my own feelings of am I lazy? Should I go get a real job? Should I? But then I can't, also deny either. Just like, I've hell or high water, I've made a living in the music business since I was 17 years old. And I'm so thankful for that. But like, in a lot of ways, the Plinko chip of life kind of even getting me to this point. And there were sicknesses involved, I'm sure we'll talk about and whatnot, but I'm still faced with like, I'm sure it's insecurity, but you're faced with just these pressing things of like, do I need to go drive a truck? Like, will that make me more happy? Because it's like imposter syndrome a little bit
right.
of just like, well, I've been here this long and it hasn't worked out. Does that mean I'm a shit entrepreneur? Or does that mean I can't quit now? I'm in the heat of I don't, it's like when you're an entrepreneur, there is no boss.
Oh,
so
yeah.
there's no one telling you like,
No,
and so
trust me,
it's
I
just
more than
difficult. I think imposter syndrome in my line of work is like, I go through seasons of having employees on the road, and then I go through seasons of it just being me. And then I go through seasons of creating, which hides me away, even though that's as much being an entrepreneur in my business as going and playing shows.
Right.
But there's not a lot of like just immediate what's the word I'm looking for?
Just immediate gratification.
Gratification of like, when I write a song, in so many ways it fulfills that thing. And
Right.
even the last few years in making the record I did, like I had to take a lot of chances and faith of like, just what does it look like if I made a record believing in myself?
Right.
But, and a lot of the times you don't get paid for that in our business.
Right.
You get paid for dancing on stage or dancing on TikTok or this or that. And that's why I don't ever hate on artists that are doing whatever they have to do. We're in the lane now of artists that want to put out music and tour on it, starting channels like golf channels or starting food channels I know 2 people that do both of those things. And, I look at that and it's like, feels like, if I'm going this way, it feels like I'm taking a detour that way to get there. Then in the long run, like you're just winning over fans. So I understand.
Right.
But it's just a mind game of like feeling like, dude, I don't even know if I have it in me to promote myself as much as Nashville is wanting me to, right? Like
Right.
that's what goes through my head. But then just the other side of that, having faith and believing that like, I may not see all of the pieces to this puzzle right now, but they're on the table somewhere.
Right.
We just got to find them.
I think it's definitely a generational thing because we're the same age, right? I'm 32. How old are
Yeah,
you?
33.
Yeah, 33. So we missed the cusp of like it being comfortable being in a Walmart aisle and propping our phone up and doing a dance.
Oh,
and
100%.
Like
Yeah.
we missed that mark. Like I'm not gonna make fun. Does it look goofy at times? But I'm not gonna make fun of it because it's just part of their generation.
People are hustling, dude.
Dude, they're
Yeah.
hustling. They're making great money
That's
doing
what I
it.
have
I'm
no
not
shame.
mad about it at all.
Yeah.
But the awkward part about our generation is there is this playfulness slash um, self-absorption a little bit to really
Well,
be comfortable doing
that's how
it.
it feels to me,
To
whether
being,
it's true
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
not.
That's the way I feel too. But there's nothing wrong with it. It
But
doesn't
even like
make you
something like
less
this
than.
setting
Yeah,
feels more. I don't know if it's the words thought out or if it's more meaningful. I don't know. And again,
well,
it makes me feel judgy toward other people. So I don't want to be that. I swear to God, I don't want to be that. But it does make me feel like there's no like thought into it. It's very self,
right.
promoting and very self like I don't know. That's how it makes me feel. I'm working through all those feelings, and I know
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
got to do
Well, I
it.
think
But
that's why I like podcast form because it's just raw. It's real. It's like we're chatting. It has nothing to do. We didn't script this. We didn't say, hey,
yeah,
like, and that's why I love the podcast form is because it's not
yeah. But we
as
say all the
scripted.
time too, like if there's a if you're running from danger and a vehicle pulls up, you're gonna hop in it. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, they're all vehicles.
Oh, I love it. You've told me this 100 times. Like whatever's
And
gonna get this
and I
to
but
the
I
next
say
level.
that
Yeah.
to convince myself more than anyone else of like because it doesn't feel that way. It
Right.
feels like I'm selling my soul for some reason. It
Yeah.
feels like because my generation of artists like and not to make excuses, just how it feels, but it does feel like I moved to Nashville and I in a crack, if you will, time where it's like it was the old way of doing things still existed, even though the entire world was changing around it with technology. Things
Right.
like, back in the day when I moved to Nashville, you would write songs for a month or two, and someone, you know, definitely would have a demo session at a studio with real musicians and there may be like they may be there for half a day and they're doing 10 songs and they have the whole session full, but they have 2 slots open. And so they'll send a text out and be like, does anybody have songs they want to demo? And from the 15 songs you wrote over 2 months, you pick your favorite 2 songs.
Right.
There's thought behind it.
Right.
Within a very short time of me moving to Nashville, a guy that I won't name, but I mean, there's no reason I guess I couldn't, but he's very successful. He was like my first experience. It was just me and him writing. He was a track guy. And I didn't even know what that meant. And all that means is that from the time I showed up at 10 or 11 that day, we wrote a song. I was literally sitting in traffic. I remember this. I was sitting in traffic on my way home, and I get a text from the guy that the entire song that we wrote from start to finish, he had put music, I sang the vocal, everything was done.
Mm.
At that moment, Nashville changed.
Right.
And technology makes everybody a singer. Technology makes everybody
Right.
entertainer.
Right.
And I think I struggle with that because I just, I feel like it's a rat race. It always has been, but it's a rat race to like quantity.
Right.
Like when I was writing at Universal, it was all about, I was always an artist, so I got treated a little bit different because I could cut my own songs that I wrote, So I always had a chance to get on a record, is what I'm
Right.
saying. But yeah, man, it felt like no one was listening to the songs as long as it had enough buzzwords
Right.
of something that, the big artists at the time would want to cut. That's all we care about. So it just felt consistent. Like I was writing songs that were like 72% done.
Yeah.
Like nothing was really great.
Well, it's just good that you're saying it and you're saying it out loud because I'll be honest with you, there's so many people that feel that way that, and this is just in my humble opinion, I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way you and I do.
Yeah.
But for lack of a better word, it seems like you're hating. I'm not hating.
Sure.
This is just the way I feel about the platform and trying to leverage platforms and the way I feel.
And the desperation comes in when you feel like you can't do anything
right.
about
I'm
it.
not hating on you at
Yeah.
all. Just from my perspective,
It feels
this
like they're
is the
saying
way I
that's the
feel.
only way now.
Right.
And so, I inherently
Right.
believe it's not.
No, it's not.
And you
Well,
see it all the time that
yeah.
it's not.
Well, church.
But
Church was talking. I think it was Bobby Bones' podcast the other day about how hard it is. He saw a guy on the internet. He wanted him to open up for one of the shows. He wanted to bring him on tour. He calls him up. He says, "Hey, come on." And God never played with a band in his life. He could not do it. He couldn't go open up for the Chief because all he's done is just these little snippets on TikTok, and he never gigged. He never had to run through the bars, right? So, anyways, we're getting off on a tangent, but I think you did it the right way. You moved to town at what age?
17.
17. All right, so to start with the story about the pamphlet and Tootsie's, and then start with your record deal and what that looked like and who you signed with.
Oh, about college.
Yeah, I thought that was a funny story the other day.
My mother, like I said earlier, had a front row seat to dad kind of just, giving his 3 strikes at Nashville. And she wanted me to sing gospel music, and for me, like if I was going to ever do that, it definitely wouldn't have been the Gaither vocal band, like that wasn't exactly, we were adjacent to that, but dude, the Crab family, I'm sure you know who that is.
Yes, of
like,
course,
dude,
yeah.
I've known them since I was like 12 years old. I love them so much. Like, literally some of the most talented people, you know, literally ever. And they all are so talented, and I do love them. But I didn't want to do that style of music. I wasn't, didn't speak to me. Like, if I was going to do anything, it was going to be like R&B or like, because I got heavy into Neo and Chris Brown
So sick, baby.
before the Rihanna incident.
Yeah, he's back. He's so back.
I literally like but not so much R&B, more so just like music with like gospel chops,
Right.
like stuff that you could really sing,
Right.
like not like, because country music was, yes, everyone loves it for the stories, but I wanted to feel it too,
Right.
and so I didn't sing traditional country music. I didn't really have a place, I felt like. So anyway,
College.
Mom was like, we're going to college, and I was like, we'll see about that. And my senior year of high school, we got a free day off of school if we went to a college and went through their whole spiel. And so we go to Nashville on like a Friday morning, and we were going to turn into a long weekend in Nashville. So we go to like 8:30, 9 a.m. We go to Belmont, and we get the pamphlet, and they start to like do the tour, and I said okay, and Mom was like, we're not going to do the tour, and I was like, no. And by 11 a.m. at Tootsie's, like on their weekends, they would do karaoke with the band.
Right.
And so by 11 a.m. I was on stage singing George Jones at Tootsie's
With your pamphlet.
with my pamphlet in my back pocket.
And
that was about as close as I ever got to going to college.
It's amazing. So you moved to town. What was the timeline between moving to town and getting your first record deal?
I mean, I was very fortunate. There's a fella that kind of brought me to town. His name was Carson Chamberlain, and Carson and his family I had known since I was a toddler. And Carson and my father worked together in the early 90s. I had done when I was like a senior in high school, my dad paid for me to do like a little, like a demo thing that we did at the Sound Exchange, which doesn't exist anymore in Nashville. Legendary studio. And, the songs sucked. I think I wrote like one of them by myself.
Right.
And, but nonetheless, that all led to Carson hearing it and him just like saying, hey, I want to be involved. And so that's what led up to my senior year of high school. He gave me a task. I'd never written a song before, never really even wanted to. I had tried maybe when I was like, 13, 14. I was like, oh, this is hard. I don't want to do that no more. He gave me a task every week my senior year to write a song. And then I was like coming to Nashville, like not every weekend, but because I had quit football by my senior year because I was fully focused on music. Going back to like it, I made up my mind, like this is what I'm going to do. And I put all my effort into it. And I would go and write. There's this old cat named Stephen Allen Davis. And he's about half crazy, but when he was 17, he got a song cut on Frank Sinatra's record. And in the 90s, he had maybe like 6 or 7 number ones and just made a ton of money, but kind of lost it all and was in a precarious place. And so me and Carson and him wrote, and I loved it. I was like, man, if this is what this is, like, I got to be a part of this. And that was like my first co-write, but my second co-write ever was with Ashley Gorley.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is for anybody that doesn't know, Ashley Gorley wrote 87 number ones. He's going in the Hall of Fame, I think, like this week. He's flying up to New York. I mean,
Yeah.
Prince and Michael Jackson are in the Hall of Fame songwriters. That's
He's
Ashley Gorley.
Ashley's a special guy, but you know the songwriting is about the last thing that makes him special. He's truly a unique dude, and
Yeah.
he's a you know for a man that came from what he came from, and literally has accomplished, quite frankly, probably 5 lifetimes of what
Hmm.
a songwriter could ever imagine accomplish. Um, Him and his wife Mandy, they've raised amazing kids, and they're just such a wonderful unit, and they're just people that are full of love and haven't changed. And I think that's the most admirable thing about Ashley and all the Gorleys is that they're just real people, and they always extend. You know, that's what I love about country music, just in a shell, because you know we can sit here and talk about the negative for 2 days, but there are tons of people like that too in the business. But yeah,
I think I'm drawn to country music because of that, or just the industry as a whole, because I've met so many good people. I mean, truthfully, I mean, I haven't engulfed myself in it enough to see the negative, but for the most part, 90% of the people that I've met are just good
yeah,
folks, man, good folks. And I think AG is one of them. I've never met Ashley. I've just got a bunch of mutual friends that writes for, and say everyone says the same thing you do about Ashley, which is really dope. So you moved to town. Ashley's your second room.
we're writing, and I mean, Ashley maybe had how many hits would Ashley have had in 2010? Yeah, so he was like just on the beginning of his stuff. um, Carson. So like my first year, I graduated in May of 2010, and by June, I was living in Nashville,
Yeah.
or July, and the rest of that fall, I Jody Williams at BMI was one of the first people I sang for, and we started to grow a culture of like, because Carson's relationships, he could get, I sang for every single record label in town,
Wow.
and all of the main people came to hear me because of Carson.
Right.
And I was doing this thing where I literally was singing live in the studio for them. It was
Right.
like one of the more unique ways. And not toot my own horn because it wasn't just me, but there's lots of people. But it was really a sweet time I look back on, because that was my first ever experience in the music business. I had no idea that the real music business didn't operate like that. I had a man with 30 years in the game with his relationships opening a lot of doors for me. And I Mike Dungan, and I mean everybody, every major record label and non-majors came to hear me sing. And long story short, Scott Borchetta came to hear me sing on, it was like December 21st of 2010, and it was like a Saturday. There's nobody there. It was the first time I'd ever seen anybody pull up in a Maserati, and he came in, and he was very kind. And long story short, loved it. And there's a guy named Jimmy Harnan that had just taken over Republic, and now Jimmy, I think, runs the whole shebang at Big Machine. But uh, they came in like the next week to hear me and offered me a record deal. Well, first off, he didn't believe that he thought I was using auto tune because I was singing in the booth while they were in the control room. So we went to Ronnie Millsap's studio next door, and the same Smoky
cool.
Mountain Rain was playing on. My dad played, and I sang in front of them, and he offered me a record deal.
That's cool.
And then that's what led to me signing with Universal, because it was like matching rights. Because my first deal, Ben Vaughn, who sadly just passed away, he offered my first publishing deal. But Universal had matching rights because I was a Republic, so that's how I ended up at Universal. And I'm there for a long time. I'm at Big Machine. I cut a whole record with Carson, and this kind of goes back into Jackie falling through the cracks type of stuff. But it was just a changing of the guard time. Like I told you, there's all these new young cats my age moving to town that no one had given credibility to, as they shouldn't have. But nonetheless, they were changing the culture almost overnight. Like Carson was quite literally and Carson has many great qualities. It's not so much about the quality, it's more about the accessibility. Like, cutting a record with Carson, they gave me a lot of money. I mean, well over $100,000 to cut a record. And it was the old school way of cutting a record. So there was no way to be nimble in making it. Everything was so blocked out. So like, if I wanted to redo a guitar part that, Brent Mason, the greatest living session guitar player that ever lived in Nashville, it wasn't the simplicity of calling someone to just do a part over, didn't exist yet. Everything cost a lot of money. And I felt like vice grips around my neck. And I'm knowing this, and the project's not exactly what I want. It sounds old. It sounds like a little dated, especially when, I signed a deal before Florida Georgia Line and Thomas Charette and all those people. And the band Perry was like just popping off when I signed. And then you have, Florida Georgia Line literally changed everything.
Right.
And, Joey Moy, who makes seamless, perfect sounding records. My stuff sounded like
Right.
the nursing home compared to that. And so, in a nutshell, that has been my experience, like, up until now, I feel.
Yeah.
Where because I was at Big Machine for, like, barely 2 years, and they let me go. And we never put out a song or anything. I was devastated. That was, to me, that's the only thing that I had no self-confidence. So, like, a record deal is the only thing that gave me legitimacy of even feeling like I could call myself a professional.
Yeah, what was that like? Did they call you? Who let you know?
They called my manager.
And then your manager calls you.
Yeah. And there was some politics at play, not really having to do with me. Like, at that time I was with a producer that, I mean, he's hot again now, but yeah, at that time just wasn't desirable. And I think he would say that too, for what was being made. And a manager who was really good to me, but was almost 60 years old and made $30 million in his career and was done.
So was your team given to you, or did you handpick?
My producer, Carson, was the first person I met.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he just introduced me to everybody.
He's with Zach Top now, so he's
I
been
didn't
okay.
have a choice in anything.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying I couldn't have if I was spoken up. Like, I was 18 years old. I didn't know. I thought, I was like, I have no
Well, that's
say.
what I was alluding to. I mean, you
Yeah.
came in so young. It's almost like you don't know what you
And
want.
also the producer had, like, it wasn't like, I felt like it was the best option because he had freaking well over 10 number ones as a producer with other artists. And the manager had been one of the biggest managers in the game.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't like I felt like I was making a wrong decision. But nonetheless, I still didn't, like, meet with several people.
So this was like the first blow. What we're about to get into next, obviously, you've had multiple blows after this. So I don't want to stop here. So you lose your record deal.
I'm still at Universal Publishing, and so I'm writing, and so that
you still have your publishing deal, but you lose your record deal. When do you lose your mom? When do you find out you have cancer?
So getting into mom, I go. This would have been 2011 or 12. It was like December, right before Christmas, when they let me go, and then by February of the next year is when I met Benny Brown at Broken Bow, and at that time they just had Jason Aldean and Dustin Lynch.
Yeah, two terrible artists.
Yeah. They suck. I tell Dustin all the time. Dustin, I love Dustin so much, but I'm like, you gotta give me your teeth routine, man.
Jeez,
See those things from a satellite in space.
Yeah, he's got some good teeth.
I ended up signing a record deal with Broken Bow, and that was like my Benny owned, like every company in Nashville seemingly, you have to go through 15 different sets of lawyers to get anything done. And at Broken Bow, the man who had all the money was in the office every day. So things moved quickly. They didn't always move the way you wanted them to because he, was pretty
going fast,
strong-willed, and kind of, and to his credit, he was the one giving all these people opportunities, but just wasn't a lot of room for creativity. He just kind of did what he wanted you to do. And I was just desperate to be successful, so I was like, whatever you want me to do. Cut a record. It wasn't good. I knew it wasn't good, but they wanted to put a song out. I start radio tour. I'm on radio tour for 5 years. And thankfully it was on a bus because Benny owned several buses. And so, it's a double-edged sword. I was out there living my dream, but I had a ball and chain everywhere I went because I knew I didn't believe in what was happening.
Right.
And, I'm feeling shame because I never spoke up. I'm feeling shame but I'm also young and I'm just trying to make everybody happy. And I'm just trying to be successful, make money. And I'm just keep saying to myself, if you just keep saying yes, sir, and doing what they say, eventually you'll be able to call some shots.
Wow.
And that was the biggest lie I could have ever told myself. And I knew that, but had to keep sane somehow. So 2000, yeah, I'm like all over the place. And, radio tour for me, I also found out pretty quickly that I was real, I'm a politician. I can go in and win anybody over. And I was getting ads. Like, I set a record at Broken Bow for first week ads.
Oh, an ad day?
And the song was terrible. And it literally never left.
What song was it?
It was called She Does. And
Yeah,
it just
that was your first
just
one,
not good. I had like 54 first week ads for a first artist, and that like broke a Broken Bow record.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm going into all these places and we're having dinners and I'm singing live for them. And, I'm winning them over just by them getting to know me, because I even knew that like, it ain't going to be because they love this music. And so I was like, I got to, hey, look at this hand, I got to do something. And I love that stuff. Like, weirdly, like, I'm the annoying dude that sits next to you on an airplane and says, hey, where you going? It's just who I am. And so anyway, there's so many stories in all that I could tell for some other time. But Mom, first time I ever hear the word Mom has cancer was in 2013. And I didn't even tell my brother and sister for a while because we didn't know what it was. But I was living in a different town, and Dad wanted me, to know. And so 2013 is the first time we heard it. Mom passes June 4th of 2016. And she ends up passing in Nashville because I had called a friend. Her dad was like one of the leading heart surgeons at Vanderbilt, and I was desperate. And I called her one night and was like, I'm not asking you to do anything special. I just, they're, pretty much giving up on my mom here in Knoxville. And if there's anything. And so she was so kind, and her dad was wonderful and got my mom into treatment immediately. And so like the last year and a half of Mom's life, she was in Nashville a lot with me. And she passes June 4th, 2016. My entire world was shattered. And I don't remember much. I remember the funeral. I really don't remember between June to then September. I couldn't tell you what happened. I don't know where I was. I don't know what I was doing.
What do you mean? Was it just such a dark time that you just
I
blacked out?
actually literally can't physically remember if I played shows in between that time. Because the first thing I remember...
Just numb.
Was what in September of that same year, my mother's birthday would have been September the 4th. And it was around that time, Florida Georgia Line invited me out on the road to write with them for a weekend. And so I go up, and we're in like Cleveland, and I'm just traveling all around. And I start to, and to this day, I would say it if I knew it, but I just had this weird intuition that like I didn't even have a pain, but I, eventually started to feel something around my belt line. And that is what started my cancer journey. And so, was that 3 months after Mom passed?
Is when you found out you had cancer.
And I never heard the word cancer until they took, my testicle out of my body.
Yeah.
I did think about changing my name to Half Sack Jack. I thought that had a nice ring to it.
I think it would move. It would move tickets. I don't know in what direction.
Merch?
But...
Can you, a country singer with
merch,
one testicle?
Yeah, that would
like
be
you
sick.
could say I had a ball at the Jackie Lee concert, or you could be like, mic check, testing one.
Oh, don't,
you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah.
There's nothing but options. Anyway, so I call my dad, and he's just like, in light of everything that just happened in our lives, because last time I went to the doctor, I was 11 for strep throat. We never got sick. So all this was new. And I go, and
you guys have doctors over there?
You'd be surprised, brother. They also are the blacksmith and the...
okay. So anyways...
I didn't have a doctor in Nashville. I'd never been to the doctor in Nashville. Not even a clinic. Like, I never went to anything.
So what prompted you to go to the hospital?
My dad. You just saying, like...
Well,
eventually, at some point, there had to be a pain. So, I'm sure that's what led me there. But
did you catch it pretty soon, did they say, or no?
Well, so the doctor, for like a month and a half, thought I had, basically like an infection in my tract. And so I did 2 different 10-day antibiotics. And at the second trial of the antibiotic ending the second time, he was like, I think there's something different going on. And I still didn't, no one had said the word cancer at all. There was nothing like I could visibly see. One day I went to play golf, and I almost couldn't drive home. My back was hurting so bad. And it felt like it was not going to end.
Right.
And that's in my mind when it started to take a turn. Back in it, I iced it, took some Advil, back ended up feeling better. Pain started to persist a little bit more. Testicles started to swell a little bit more. All this is happening. They can't do a biopsy of testicular cancer because if it is cancer, they have to shave off your entire scrotum. I was like, hey, let's not do that. Anything but that.
Yeah, I got it.
And there was this, I went in, I swear to God, I went in for roughly 8 ultrasounds on my nutsack. And there's this old lady that put this jelly on my nuts every time. And like around the third time I said, I swear I'm not pregnant.
Oh my God.
I mean, she was like gelling, my nut.
It's been a while, brother.
This is what happened.
Yeah, she was trying to get
Still, even then, they didn't tell me I had cancer.
Wow.
I'll never forget leaving. I had just written Getting Over You. It wasn't out yet. And I'm like, my life is falling apart at the seams. I'm like, I felt like I'm Samson holding the pillars up. Like, I'm just like, don't fall down on me.
Right.
Getting Over You was the only song in my career at the time that I even remotely believed in. Paul DiGiovanni produced it. Like, I loved it from the beginning to the end. Fighting like hell to get my record label to put it out. I don't tell them anything that's going on. They have no idea I'm going to the doctor. Benny sells the company that December. All of this happened in 1 month. They put my song out the reporting Monday before the break. And that's like a 3-week break. If you're listening and you're an artist at a record label, if they put your song out before the Christmas break, the last reporting Monday, they want it to fail. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
And so
checks out.
We get into the new year. Well, okay, I start doing radio stuff again. Like, I'm flying all over the country. My last one was in Boston. I had surgery on December 15th of 2016 at 5:30 a.m. I land at like 11:30 p.m. the night before from Boston. My dad drives into town. We're at the hospital at 4 a.m. Surgery at 5:30. I'm outpatient surgery. I'm back home. They took a testicle out of my body. I have a scar from, the top of my scrotum to my belt. And, I'm like, everything's fine. We're good. Everything's fine. We're totally fine. My mom didn't just die. I didn't just have a cancer scare. We're fine. Get into 2017, and I hit the road, and I don't look back. Like, I'm gone the entirety of that year.
Right.
With Dan and Shay, Brett Young. Like, I'm playing with just all my homies, and they're having me out. I'm doing solo acoustic stuff. That kind of translates into full band stuff. All the while going back to the doctor every 3 months for PET scans. And, they did a biopsy. That's the first time I heard cancer was in January, like a month after surgery. They're like, it was cancer. We think we got it all. No need to do chemo. We'll just keep checking on you. I tell my manager at the time, I want to be anywhere but Nashville.
Right.
I'm gone. August of 17. Literally 17 was one of the greatest years of my life because it was rough. And it wasn't like I made, crazy money, but I made good money. And I was doing what I loved. And it wasn't attached to number ones. It wasn't attached to selling out even venues. A lot of the venues I played, we played every major festival that year, which was fun. But a lot of the shows I played, some were sold out. Most of them weren't. But it was all the same to me. I loved it.
Yeah, my wife loves your Stagecoach set. We still listen to that.
Oh, really?
I think it was recorded. I think it's on iTunes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know.
I've not even listened. I cuss a bunch.
No, I
Okay.
think I would send it to my mom.
Because that night, Shania Twain was the headliner, and I'm standing in a pit with Ashton Kutcher. Me and Shay Mooney with Ashton Kutcher, and who's that other big actor that was standing there? Rob Lowe, maybe. Anyway, I had shows through December, and I'm like, can we wait till October to have chemo? And they're like, yeah. So I start full on chemotherapy in October of that year, and I played shows through Thanksgiving. And by that last weekend of shows, hair was falling out of my head on stage, literally out of my beard when I'd hit it against the microphone. I could feel it. There was a few people that tagged me in photos, and I screenshot them out because I still had my hair, but I started to have cancer face. And I remember barely being able to stand up. Like, that's all I remember. And so after that, I literally was like, I don't care if I ever sing again. Like, what's happening in my life? Like, what's actually happening? I don't know.
Right.
And so I'm done with chemotherapy in January of 18. I was on my contract with Universal for like, actually, I might have renewed. That might have been the last year of 18. Can't remember if it ended in 18. I think it went through 18. And I'm just like so lost and just hurt and pissed and asking a lot of questions that I'm not getting answers to. And I just felt like I was sitting in a sewer. Like, I couldn't get away from the smell. I couldn't get it off of me. Like, it was...
What was your faith like at this point?
You
mad at God too, or what?
I grew up in a culture that, I do think this is a true stigma of the South, where whether it be the way that we're raised through our parents or just generationally, God can feel distant, like he's on a perch, and that, you really can't talk to him. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about, my parents' experience with God. It had to be real to them. It's not a game. Like, we could be doing other things if it's a game, If extending all this love when people are bad, or if extending compassion when people don't deserve it, there's no real win in that unless it's true.
Right.
And so...
That's good.
And trust me, I go back and forth all the time. I'm like, even somehow I've handled things over the last few months of my life. It's like, I don't know if I'm handling them right. I'm desperately trying to handle, at the best I can tell you, I'm trying to handle them in a way that, like, older me, Grandpa Jackie, will be able to look back and be proud that, like, I handled it with some, similarity to love and not judgment. But, I don't know. I'm a dude. I react to stuff. I don't do well a lot of the times, but I can say that, like, I never gave up on it. But I definitely got to a point, I'm like, if this is real, you're going to have to help me.
Yeah.
Because, like, none of this makes sense. And if I was to sit here and tell you that, like, it all makes sense now and, God's purpose was fulfilled, like, I'd be lying my butt off to you.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel that way.
Yeah, I think God gets our attention at times, and sometimes we don't like the way he does it. And it's happened over and over in my career to where I have to surrender. We talk about this.
Yeah.
Where it's like he literally gets you face first on the ground, where it's like, dude, you've tried it your way.
But the surrender part is like, the trying it your way to me is the just like having enough, if you want to call it faith or courage or whatever you want to say, to believe that there's a different outcome versus the reality that I'm experiencing. That is the whole thing to me. And that is the secret sauce of why it's so difficult and why people suck. Yeah. We're to be a hypocrite, hypocrite has a bad connotation to the name.
Right.
But to be a hypocrite, that means you have a high standard for yourself that you're failing.
Right.
So in and of itself, to me, being a hypocrite isn't why I judge somebody, because we're all hypocrites. The way that I treat people when I feel like my back's against the wall to this day is not the way that I want to treat people, but I'm a dude and I do it. Right. Or when I feel, with my back against the wall to my career, I'm coming for throats.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, all that being said, I get to silence. That was my key word. I'm in a business where silence means nothing but negativity. Silence means you're not making money. Silence means you're not promoting. Silence means you're not creating. And my leap of faith, if you will, was like stepping into the silence. And there was I went and did this program out in Franklin that I didn't tell anybody about, and all it was just, because I just started having these heavy thoughts of because I wasn't married yet or anything. And I was like, I want to be like a husband one day. And I don't want to be a husband that chews his wife out every 5 seconds because I've not dealt with my trauma, or
Yeah, you haven't dealt with
not
yourself.
that I'm that guy,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like,
No,
and
we see
same
that
thing
all the
with
time.
my business partners. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to, because I don't trust myself that I did not
Yeah.
do for me what I needed. And so for a guy that has dealt with insecurity his entire life, I am proud of myself that, like, in a time, dude, my dad didn't understand. Like, no one in my business understood. Like, I don't blame them for not understanding. If anything, I was walking away from the only momentum I ever created for myself in a song that still was streaming well. Like, Getting Over You has over 100 million impressions.
Oh, I love the song.
Um,
I still think it's a hit.
and so, like, but to me, like, it all just started to taste like sand. I was like, dude, like, I, I've said this a lot now, but to me, it was like my moment of going back to the curtain and pulling it back and seeing that it was a man and not a wizard.
Right.
Like, all of the magic of my business completely left the room. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and actually like that guy enough to care about myself to then come out of this hole.
Yeah.
I was in a hole. And I still, I feel like I can see the top, but like, and dude, I would go through what I went through. I'm not exaggerating. Every single year for the rest of my life, if it meant my mother could be back with me. Like, I literally would. That's how much more the difference of the pain was.
Right.
Like, my pain was nothing compared to the pain that I felt like I had no control over.
I feel that.
And so, yeah, man, like, all of that then led me to just, quarantine was in there too. So, like, right when I start to feel like in 2019, to be honest with you, Ashley called me. We played basketball, especially through those years, like once a week. And so Ashley's been a good friend to me for a long time. And he was just like, he called me one day. He was like, what are you doing with your life? Like, what do you want to do with your life? And, we tried some stuff, and quarantine happened literally like right when we started to do stuff. It was January of 2020. And so, that put a cap on stuff, and no one knew what was ahead. And then, secretly, not for the sake of what quarantine did to the world, but for my sake of, like, it gave me time to still, it kind of leveled the playing field. It felt like me for a second. But I still didn't have that thing in my soul that I was, like, passionate about. And then I was working with this other dude, but in December of 22, I rekindled a relationship with my producer, Will, who, not to be weird to people on camera, but he is sitting off camera, so I'm not going to talk about him totally in third person. But we went to, Will and I are literally so similar in so many areas, but I am so much more uncool than Will is, in the sake of, like, I can be a goofy goober and want to go walk around Opryland Hotel, where, a person that's lived in Nashville for 15 years, that's like the bottom of the list of things you want to do. But I called him, and it was like Christmas time, and so it made it even more lame that all the lights were out. And we walk around, and we sit over there by the water fountain, and we're just catching up. And he had been dealing with some long-term sickness as well. And just in so many ways, I think the beautiful thing about where we are is, like, we don't have to explain to one another the angle we're coming from a lot of the time. And that started to become, this is before we even knew what we were doing. We just, like, were rekindling a friendship at first. And, we had the hopes of working together, but, like, we had no idea. And for me, for the first time in my then, 13 years of Nashville, I felt rejuvenated. I felt excited. I felt like, oh yeah, I love to write country music. I love to, like, record country music. I love to then go perform those shows at new songs I wrote at the listening room and tell stories. I love this. How could I ever make anybody or a situation make me feel like I don't? And so we started to, Will, over quarantine himself, turned, and Will and Ashley wrote at the same publishing company for years, and Ashley loved Will's writing. But Will was always, like, more like, the reason I always loved writing with him through the years, because it felt like every other write I had, it was just trying to write a down the middle country song that somebody that, their name rhymed with Luke Bryan or Morgan Wallen could cut. And when I wrote with Will, like, it was like we never thought about that. Yeah. It was like, what's the coolest idea we can come up with today?
Right.
It doesn't matter what the music...
As it should be, I think, yeah.
And yeah, you can figure out the music later, really. Like, it's like, what is the most meaningful thing we can say today?
Right.
And that, that's getting into like what Glenn Campbell did, and that's getting into like what the country crooners in the 60s and 70s and 80s did. It wasn't all just like Hank Williams Jr. That came later.
Right.
He turned an old 50s camper into a studio, and we start writing with another friend of ours, Scott Stepikoff. And
You turned the camper into it? That's sick.
oh, you got to come and we'll play you some of the new songs we
Well,
got.
that's dope. Yeah.
Oh, it's so sick.
I didn't know that, yeah.
And it was, he lives kind of like just a few streets off Music Row. So you're like right in the middle of everything. You feel the energy and the aura of Nashville, but we're in his backyard in this trailer that he converted into a studio. And we might as well have been in damn Timbuktu. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We made an entire record from there. And the only thing we did in a real studio was Nick Buda, who plays with Kenny Chesney. We went to a studio and he put down drums for us, the Blue Room, in Berry Hill. And Rob McNeely, who is, I love to say, or I tell everybody, is the touring musician for Bob Seger. But he himself is just a legendary studio musician and played with every big act in, country music over his time. But just great people. Like, I literally, if I could make a good living just doing that,
Yeah.
like, I do love playing shows, so that's a whole nother half of it. But, like, that is the most joy I had ever felt in my entire career in the music business.
Was it the Land of the Living record?
Yeah, that record.
Yeah.
Just making all, I mean,
It's
we
raw.
we
It's
wrote.
real. It's your story. It's everything that you all had just heard, encapsulated in songs. And it's not
It's not trying to be something else.
Yeah, yeah. I think where people missed that album. Is it out? It's not out.
Well, that's what I was going to get into, but no.
Yeah, it's not out. But I've heard this. I've heard it so many times, so it feels like it's out to me. But I think for me, the record is only a record Jackie Lee could write, and I think there's so much
And that's what I've been scared of this whole time.
beauty in that.
That's what's
Well, from an artistry standpoint, dude, that's all we ever want to feel as a fan, right? I don't write music. I don't record music. When I listen to an album, I want to feel like this is them. Like Luke Combs is drinking beer and Morgan Wallen's getting in trouble and and having girl issues. Like I as much as cliche as it be, I feel like that's who they are. Your album was no different for me, and it connected in a way that it was like, man, it's not even out, so it's crazy we're even talking about it. But
if you're looking for songs that talk about one testicle, I'm your guy.
Yeah. One Nut Jack. What do we say?
Half Sack
Jack. Yeah, sorry, I messed that up. But anyways, and that's kind of where I come into play, and we'll try to land this plane here.
Okay, well, I was going to say, getting in how we can land this plane, because I got to pee. The reason it's not out is, I just, and quite frankly, the reason I'm sitting on Kenny Rogers' ottoman right now, sofa chair right now, is in 2024, we made the record the entirety of 23, and literally will go down as one of the greatest, even though it was full of anxiety and not knowing what's next. Even being this close removed from that year, I definitely can tell you will be one of the greatest years of my career, because it was one of the first times I trusted myself enough, and quite frankly had the personnel in my life that I trusted enough to just create.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun.
And it didn't feel rushed, and you didn't feel like there was, I heard you say on earlier projects that the money being thrown into it, you felt like you had to get the best return on that dollar you possibly
Well, there was no money.
That's what I'm saying. This is just you guys going into the lab and creating.
80% of the entire record,
right.
Like, not to mention produced it, but
right.
played. And that was fun, though. Like, we came up with all the pedals.
I just think that's the way it should be. I think what these executives sometimes do, and I'm speaking from an outsider, so I could sound like an idiot here, but I do feel like when you have a bunch of money and you've signed a lot of big artists, you can just grab and go and just say, throw them in, see if something comes out. If they don't, next. And you're just kind of expendable, and the art kind of gets away from it. And I don't know, man, just from a country music loving art human being, I feel albums way more if I think, okay, only Jackie had these experiences. Only he could write a song saying it's good to be back in the land of the living. Like, what the hell does that even mean?
And I'll tell you,
but I know when Jackie sings it.
Playing that game, that's, to me, that's the long-term game, because,
right.
People want success right now, and they want their songs to be number one right now. And that's why artists tend to be hot and then disappears, because having consistent hits is really difficult.
Right.
But it's addicting. I've never had that, but I've seen over and over, where I can imagine it's also addicting. If you're an artist that feels like, quite frankly, it's like Rustin Kelly, one of my favorite guys making music in Nashville right now. And it's like, he makes music, number one, for himself, but the fan base that I've watched him grow over the last I've known him for over 10 years. And to watch him grow this fan base, it's like, it may not be the flashiest thing every quarter, but he is consistently growing a bulletproof fan base that they're looking for whatever he creates. Not just if it's the summer song for the boat, or if it's just this is my favorite redneck song. He's not making those songs. He's making songs for his fans. And the hard part is having enough faith to go find those fans. They're out there.
Yeah.
But it's a longer process. It's a more tedious process. And truth, we're humans. We don't want that.
Yeah, I think people are connected to story, and I think you have one, and I think that's why I brought you on, and why you're my first guest on this podcast, and what we're doing, and I think that's kind of where I come into play. I came to your Listening Rooms shows via Dallas Wilson, one of our dear friends,
Lame.
And yeah, goof troop,
Loser.
Yeah, it's a horrible guy.
Awful guy.
But anyways, I'm coming to these shows, Jackie, and I'm hearing your story, right? And people connect to story, right? In the business world, you got Don Miller writing books called Building Your Story Brand. And, I read that over and over on how to market myself and my brand and my companies. And it's all about the story, right? People are connected by the hurts that make you human, more so than your vocal runs, right? But you have both. And it was just this star power when I come and I watch you play, to where you can hold the room in the palm of your hand by telling your stories and singing your songs, but you can also make jokes about your nutsack. And for me, dude, it's entertainment. It's everything I want in a show, is you taking me on this crazy roller coaster ride of an entertainment through and through. It's natural. It's easy for you. And
I will say the Listening Room helped me in a lot of ways, even way more than full band shows, because it's very easy as a performer to feel like there's a plexiglass wall at the end of the stage that, like,
well, you see a set list that you got to get through.
Well, and it's work, but the Listening Room slows everything way down. People, like, the demeanor of everybody is so much more chill, and they're expecting you to tell stories. But I caught on pretty early of, like, and this is more the business half of, like, what I would consider my job, more so than just creating. But when you're on stage, that's when it doesn't matter if you sing great or light yourself on fire. Whatever made those people entertained.
Right.
And, a large part of who I am is, like, my mom died. I have one testicle. Like, I'm a walking joke.
Right.
Like, comedy follows me.
Right.
And, like, it's just how my brain works. My dad used to tell me growing up, he was like, Jack, not everything's a joke. I was like, I disagree. Like, everything can be funny.
Oh, dude, my dad fired me from the pharmacy because I took a selfie with a lady that had passed out in the chair, one of his patients. And my parents are in healthcare, dude, and I thought she was taking a nap. And I go over there and take a selfie with her, and my dad comes on the intercom. His office is above one of his pharmacies.
Spence, get upstairs
dude,
now.
Straight up there, and he's like, dude, why do you have to make a joke about everything? I said, Dad, I thought she was asleep. I mean, the ambulance is now wheeling her out. I mean, if she's out there, I'm sorry. I hope she made it. I have no idea.
This poor lady,
that
dude,
was who I was
drooling.
too, and so I connect with that so much. But same with
It's got me in trouble a ton.
Yeah, me too. I've
and
learned to reel it in.
I mean, dude, it's like, to me, it's like, if you can't joke about it, then it is real to you.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I think as long as you're taking care of the stuff internally that you've struggled with, the deck of cards that you were dealt when it comes to cancer and losing your mother and losing multiple record deals, I think if you've dealt with it, but if you're using jokes to numb it, I think then it becomes a problem.
Of course.
I think so. For me, it's like, let's deal with it, let's handle it. However, what a great guy that can get up there on stage and show the positivity behind so much hurt and trauma, because there's somebody out there maybe that's gone through the same thing, but he's made it through. He's able to joke about it. And he's obviously dealt with it internally. I just pray that the joking isn't coping, right? And that's
it definitely has been many times.
Of course it has, and I think,
but thankfully,
fake it
life
until you make it kind of
corrects
thing.
your-
Yeah.
And again, the joking for me, it's like, it's more pointing out the obvious than it is acting like the problem doesn't exist, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
more
yeah.
like,
Let's
yeah,
talk
I've
about
cried
it.
my
Yeah,
eyes out every single day about this.
yeah.
You know,
Let's
it
talk about
happens,
it. Let's
right?
talk about it. Yeah,
It's just,
and I think that's where we kind of somewhat try to end this is like, listen, I came into your life because I saw the Jackie Lee that Nashville saw when you were 17 years old. I think, full disclosure, and you dropped the bomb. We haven't done it, but anyway, I took over your management, and for me, I feel like my job, and I want to hear you say it, but I feel like my job was to bring that Jackie Lee back to the surface, let him know and let the people around him know that he's just as talented as he was when he was 17, 18 years old, and to re-spark that guy that's toured with every big name, that's wrote with every big name. But it's not about that for you, and that's what's really cool now. It's about you just singing your songs and being you and genuinely being happy singing those songs. I get that. It's why I'm here. Quite frankly, time was, I got 2 kids, a wife, a company, but I saw a guy that was like, dude, there's so much talent here. There's so much authenticity here, and he's begging for the right things right now, and we're gonna give it to him. And that's why we brought me on board, and that's why we're sitting in this unbelievable studio. And
but that's what I was going to
Angel
say
Oak
too,
and
though, because, for me, a lot of it just felt like meaningless waiting.
right,
And that's what really kicked into my head of like, okay, what is the fine line of like waiting patiently versus being lazy and not taking, action? And so, praying about that a lot, just spending time with myself, pondering that a lot. And to me, the answer is, you know, first off, I hope a year from now, let alone 10 years from now, we'll be able to watch this. Because this is like, for anyone watching that cares, like, this is the very, very, very beginning. And
come on,
and this is all very fresh to us, let alone anyone else. But what I have discovered that matters and doesn't matter. Because my God, I mean, turn the radio on. You can hear great songs and you can hear really bad songs. Not like that a lot of people would say is not great.
right,
I don't know how much more we can prove that doesn't matter.
right.
It is about your team. It is about your belief together. And it's about the vision of where you're going.
Yeah, where do you want to go? What's the
And
next
if those
5 years
things
look
aren't
like?
aligned, and like we've talked about, it's like, it's not about you ever pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Right,
It's not about, you or me ever expecting you to work any harder than I expect to work for myself. Like, those are all simple truths. It's about a win can be small or it can be big, but a win is a win.
right.
And I think in this business, that is like the most difficult thing for me to either give yourself credit on or to be able to establish. Like, dude, I've seen, feels a little bit whiny, but I'm going to say it. But like, you know how many people I have seen on Instagram over the last 5 years get a plaque for 1 million spins on a Spotify record, and I'm sitting with 60 million on Spotify alone, and no one in my team or even myself even felt like that was admirable enough to celebrate.
Right.
Like, that's what I'm talking about too. It's like, if
Well, I'll celebrate
you
with
don't,
you.
and that's, I
Good
guess,
shit,
what I'm
bro.
getting at, but that's who you are in your nature.
Yeah,
You're a
yeah.
guy that wants to take the ingredients and turn it into a great baked good. So that's what I'm excited about. I can't wait to do this again.
Well, where do you want to go? I want that. Yeah, I want to end with that. Like, how do you? Where
That's
do you
what I
see
told you
yourself
the other
next
day.
5
I want
years?
to be a surviving.
How does this end? How does this end?
I want to be a surviving brand entity that, in ways I've talked about with, Jason Isbell is a great example.
Yeah.
There's so many things I would love to model after him. Who he is as an artist is
Right.
one of the most admirable things that a person can be, because his convictions, and then he sticks to his convictions. Even down to how he tours. I said this the other day. It's like, if I ever get to sell out an arena, that'd be awesome. But like, that's not my dream.
Right.
I want to go play theaters. I want to be there I want to get in Wednesday night. I want to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the same place. I want ticket sales to be affordable. I want it to be intimate enough to where I can do a full band rock show. But if I want to get there on a piano or a guitar and talk to people and tell them a story and really connect with them, I can. Like, that's my dream. I want to be a surviving brand that doesn't need Nashville, but I use Nashville a la carte because I do love it. And my whole adult life has been there, and all my friends are there. So it's like, it's not a hater thing. It's just like, that's my dream for where I'm going.
where do you think, how does our relationship end 20 years from now? Like, and that's awkward to say. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm not saying end. I'm asking you from a management partnership. How do you see that ending?
I think if we get into both of us are married. Both of us
We
have
didn't
been
even talk about Courtney. I feel terrible.
well, she's the love of my life, and I wouldn't be here without her, truthfully.
And she looks
And
totally
she's
different than
so
Dolly Parton.
ugly.
Yeah.
She does. I mean,
But
she
she's a smoke
she
show,
is
yes.
like
You have a
straight
hot
related to Pocahontas and could be getting some government cheese right now and just won't go do it. Like, we know a girl that's white as hell. I mean, like, looks like a porcelain doll and gets a check from the government every month because she's like 1/64th Native American. I'm like, you look like Pocahontas. How are you not getting a check?
Courtney's great, man. She's great for you.
She's the love
She
of my
loves
life,
you.
man.
She's
my best friend.
She's your massive
She's
supporter.
also been the one that, she's hillbilly too, and like she loves me,
right.
and so therefore it's like she doesn't stand to win without just telling me the truth.
Right.
And so a lot of the changes that have been going through my life, she's been very, very vocal about them in a good way that I've needed, quite frankly, to handle certain business I needed to handle and to have the confidence to kind of walk in this time of my life. She gives me so much confidence and so much support that, like, man, I hope I become rich so I can take care of her the way she deserves.
And that's so admirable of you, and I know that about you, and I think it doesn't stop with
How it
Courtney.
ends.
I think it's everyone. Yeah, how's it end?
How it ends is, I don't look at this like, here I'm saying this in my early 30s today, and then 10 years from now, maybe like exactly opposite, but like, I don't look at this as a 9 to 5. Like, I think it's the same thing that's probably stopped me from having mainstream success because it felt like every time I had one of those options, I was putting on a mask. So with that being said, dude, I want to be Willie Nelson. Like, I can't, the only way I see me being done is if I feel like there's nothing left to say. And for how I feel now, like, or at least the type of music I'm trying to make, I would have felt so irresponsible to gone through everything I went through, and then my first song back was like, hey, here's a song about meeting a girl at a bar. Like, some of my favorite songs are about meeting a girl at a bar, but it's just not where I'm at right now. And so, like, with that being said, I'm on this pursuit of that, and so if I find success with that, I just want to grow it. It's just who I am. Like, I'll stop making music when I die.
Well, speaking of music, Jackie's playing right here in Bowling Green, August 14th.
We're having time, baby.
We are gonna have a time, man, and I just that's just a shameless plug.
Except
because
Dallas Wilson's gonna be there. He's gonna bring the whole party down.
Yeah, Dallas. They don't know that yet, but Dallas is coming back. I think we have Andy Albert coming, which is really dope. And so we're just kind of giving up the line, and then obviously Logan Turner's on the list. He's looking at us too, and so we love Logan. And so, anyways, man, I can't thank you enough. I think the world needs your songs, but more importantly, I think they need your story, dude. And I love the way you say it. You communicate so well. You're extremely articulate. You're funny. You're sincere. You're one of my favorite new old friends, and I cannot wait to just be adjacent to you on this ride. I know Nick obviously is behind the camera, and Logan just hearing, and John somewhere, he's running around here, but just hearing your story, dude, it is, I mean, I'm not gonna cry in front of a camera. I got kids, but it's like I'm just I'm so touched by it in a way that's not pedophile, and so it's Jesus. Dude, I love you. I love who you are. I love your music. I love your stories. I'm super pumped to be on this journey with you.
Me too,
I'm
man.
excited to be a part of what's next, and this is just the beginning, man.
Heck yeah, bro.
You're the best. Thank you for coming. Tune in.